So he reaches out for a 4-hour booking. You get him to a 14-hour. How do you then get him to a 42-hour? What was the journey there?
So his first message that I got from him had pretty poor spelling and grammar. And when I checked his number, he had reports of previously being a time waster when he'd inquired with other workers before. I would have probably missed this guy. I had a history in the past of having a massive volume of inquiries and not having capacity to reply to everyone. I just set my usual kind of approach. It wasn't anything special because at this time I didn't know what he was going to turn into. And at one point early on in the interaction, he asked if he could have some more selfies. So I had sent my usual one that I send at the start, and he asked for more. And given the time waster reports and stuff, I was decided not to. I don't want to just be giving this guy some free material. Then shortly after that, he had confirmed the booking, sent his ID, and had sent the 50% deposit that I had asked for. And that was all within about 30 minutes of him messaging as well. So it was around $3,500 for the 4-hour booking initially, plus travel, and then the overnight. And then what I ended up getting him to finally was the $12,000 for a 42-hour booking, so 2-day booking. Yeah.
That's 12 grand in one hit.
So yeah, I ended up getting the full amount up front, which is uncommon for a booking that large.
That's a lot of money for someone who has never seen your face, doesn't know who you are. There's no legal recourse to get that money back. It's a lot of money for somebody to put up. Hey everyone, welcome to the Escort Academy podcast hosted by myself, Isabelle Fox. I am really honored to introduce today's guest, Freya Svensson. She is my personal friend as well as mentee from Escort Academy. Freya, thank you so much for being here. You are supporting this industry and helping your colleagues really worldwide by being here and sharing your experience. And I cannot tell you how often I am on the phone with somebody, a worker, and this is their goal. They're asking me, Isabelle, how do I get clients to book the fly me to use, the overnight dates? And the truth is, I found that the people I work with who do this the best are the ones who specifically market for it the least. And it's because they really understand the psychology of the client and what the client actually needs to feel, hear, and experience in order to get them to self-select this sort of experience. And so you do not want to miss today's episode. That is exactly what we're diving into with Freya. We're going to go step by step. It's going to be an amazing, amazing episode for you guys. And stay tuned until the end because I always shout out a fellow worker who is making a difference in our industry. So let's get into it. Hello again, Freya. Let's begin with your startup story. Tell us, how did you come to work as an escort?
Yes, thank you so much. So I have been a full service sex worker, or escort as we call it here in Australia, for a good 4 years. I've done a lot of different kind of work across the industry. I've been in brothels when I first started out. I've done work in massage for agencies. So a few different areas. But I've been running my own independent escort business for nearly the last year now. And how I got into the industry, it's funny. I think a lot of people have a similar experience, or at least some of the people that I've met, where it's something that I was always interested in, from a very young age, 15, 16, I was what is this thing? It just seemed really interesting, and it, just always enticed me from a young age. And, I was on the sugar baby kind of websites from when I was 18, being I'm so broke, I need money. But then I was always too scared to actually go through with it, which I'm glad I didn't, because, knowing what I know now, I'm that's not a very safe place to start. That was kind of the background. And then what actually led me to, make the plunge and dive into it, was when I was about 23, I think. So over 4 years ago now. And I was working a corporate job in IT, which I didn't really like. Actually, I rather hated it. And I decided that I wanted to go to uni and become a nurse. And so I don't know, it was kind of a perfect storm. I had gone through a breakup and I was hating the job, and I needed a job that was going to be flexible and that would allow me to study my degree without being a broke uni student. I was I don't want to do that in my 20s. That was kind of what led me to be okay, I'm going to go sign up to visit a brothel and see how this all works. I'm so grateful that I did that at that time, because I don't think I'd be where I am now in a lot of senses if I hadn't have gotten into the industry.
So how did you choose the first brothel to walk into? Because that's pretty daunting. It's not really there's like a how to pick the first like adult industry workplace guide book. What made you like what
Yeah,
motions did you go through to end up walking into the place that you ended up?
yeah. And I think as well, that's an experience that everyone goes through that differently as well. I was actually lucky. The first brothel that I worked in for probably the first 6 months of my career wasn't a very good brothel, to be honest. Looking back, it was like very, very low rates and pretty disgusting, to be honest. Like, it was like in a really industrial area. It wasn't very nice. But the reason why I started there was because I had a girlfriend who I had gone to school with, and she was a receptionist there. So I was like, that's going to be like, that felt safe for me to know that I had a friend there. Like, um, I think it would have been a lot more intimidating fully going in on my own and like doing it, yeah, with no support. So yeah, I was there for a while, which yeah, it wasn't the best brothel. Like, it was really hard work and not very nice clients and just like pretty yuck overall. And then after I'd done that for a little while, I was like, okay, this isn't working for me anymore. Like, I need something that makes me feel good. Like, I just didn't even feel good going there. So I ended up finding a place that was in South Melbourne. It's called the Boardroom, and I had a really good experience there. They paid like pretty much double what I was making for, you know, an hour booking or a 30 booking at the first place I started, and it was just a lot nicer, a lot more professional and clean and all that stuff.
Round the corner from me,
I
babe.
know, neighbours.
Amazing. Yeah. So looking back at the first place that you worked, and because
Mm,
when you're new, you really don't know what to look for. I was fortunate that I had a really positive experience at Gotham City. I know that not everybody
mm,
does. And I had a bit of advice about how to approach that. My dad had said to me, like, go to multiple places, sit down with a
mm,
list of questions, try and meet the girls there and talk to them. So that was fortuitous that somebody gave me that advice and that it actually worked out that way. But a lot of
mm,
people don't have that advice. So looking back now at the first place that wasn't great, are there
mm,
any red flags or signs that you think,
mm.
if I had have known that, I would have known to either leave sooner or not go at all, that you could pass on to the future
Yeah,
working people?
I know. I mean, it's hard like when you first start because you don't know what you don't know, I think. And like a lot of the stuff I learned, like you have to kind of go through it to be able to learn it in a way, which is a shame. But yeah, I do like the idea of going to multiple brothels and like kind of getting an idea of what they're all like. I think some of the red flags for that place was that they didn't pay you per booking. So like you would do a booking, you would write it down on this little piece of paper, and then you would get your money at the end of the night, which looking back at that now, they could have totally used that to manipulate you or, just do something a bit malicious with that. But like, thankfully, I never had an issue. But yeah, that could be a red flag. Um, Something which, like, I don't know if this was just like what I found, but I was very busy at this brothel. Like, there wasn't a lot of girls who looked like me, and it was in like a lower socioeconomic area in Melbourne. So the kind of clientele they had, like, they really wanted to see someone like me, which was great because I mean I was booked all the time. But something that
Mm.
they would do was they would like book me back to back without even letting me intro. So
Mm.
I would be walking. They had like this kind of like a seating area where clients would sit all out in the open instead of doing intros in private rooms. So I'd be walking down like with all my towels from my last booking, like looking feral, and clients would see me walking back and be like, "I want her." And so
Mm.
then I would come out of bookings and I'd find out that I've got two more booked straight away, and I hadn't even met them and hadn't been able to like assess if I felt comfortable seeing them, kind of thing. So like there wasn't really an option to say no necessarily. So that was probably a bit of a red flag. And then it was pretty dirty. Like that is a massive thing. Like looking back, if I was like wanting to see what a brothel was like, I'd be like, "Can I have a tour, please?" And like show me like who does the washing. Like, do the girls have to do it themselves? Because I worked at other places where the girls have to do all the laundry, and that's like that shouldn't be, yeah, how it works. Um, but yeah. I mean, there's probably many more that I could go on about, but that's all I can think of off the top of my head.
They're really good. I would not have thought
Yeah.
of those. They're key. Like, okay, so when am I going to get paid? Because you're right, like at Gotham City, we got paid actually at the start of the booking. We got our fee.
Mm,
And then when we're in the room, there's either standard or deluxe is the typical setup, at least where I was. The client's already paid for standard. You try to get him to pay for deluxe, he pays up front.
mm,
So I
Yeah.
think that's really great tips. Like one, find out when you're going to get paid. Two, get a tour of the place. That's really smart. And when I went to Gotham City, I was really lucky. The owner's wife happened to be there and she like offered me a tour, but I wouldn't have thought to ask for one.
Ask. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I'd been to two places before that. The boardroom was one of them, and then a place before that called the Harem. And the sense
Mm.
that I have possibly of the Harem is that it might not have been as clean, but I can't know for sure because I didn't tour it. But yeah,
Yeah.
now if I had thought about that, then I could have known more in advance.
Mm.
And then the seeking, I think that the other one that you said about just sending people into bookings, I experienced that at Gotham City too, because I guess from the reception's point of view, is they're just trying to like keep the clients flowing.
Yeah. And be efficient and yeah.
Correct. I guess it more comes down to if they had have booked you with somebody and then you met them and didn't like, did you get the opportunity to at least say hi to them, obviously before walking up to the room? And if you did, would
Mm.
you have felt comfortable deciding, actually, I don't want to see that person?
Mm. I think there wasn't really like they would have been already put in a room waiting for me. It's
Oh,
like
wow.
I'll go to room 3, like your 30 minute is ready. They would have probably already had a shower as well, so it like flows off
Oh, wow.
changes the whole flow of the booking to even see what they're looking for, to be able to do a proper health check, like set things up like before the shower.
Hmm.
So there was that. I think for someone like me, I would have felt comfortable being like, no, I'm not going to see them, like actually speaking up. But
Mm.
I'm quite a like not confrontational, but I'm happy to like speak up when there's something that's not right. And I think I'm confident in myself to be able to do that. But I don't think that that's the case for many first time workers. Like if you'd only been working for a little while and you felt like you couldn't say no, like that could put someone in a really dangerous situation.
And what's your perception? Because I agree. It's like, do you feel
Mm.
comfortable and confident enough to have to say that? And then secondly, how do you think it would have been received? Like knowing them the way that you do you think they would have supported you in that decision, or would they have tried to pressure you to do the booking?
I think they would have tried to pressure me to do the booking,
Mm.
but and again, like everyone's experience at brothels and with managers and stuff like that, you're all going to have a different experience, even within the one establishment. And I think, like, luckily, I have been quite privileged in the experiences that I've had with management, in that I've been a good worker, I've made a lot of money for them, and therefore they have respect for me, which is not how it should be. You shouldn't have to earn the respect that way. It should just be a given that you can decide to do what you want. But yeah, like they would have listened to me, but I don't know if that would have been the case for other people in that circumstance.
Yeah, okay. So that you
Mm.
can add that last one to the list that you might not be able to find out ahead of working somewhere, but early on, it's do they
Mm.
respect your feedback and support you in that. And I have to say, for the most part at Gotham City, even though this might not have been everybody's experience, that's what I
Mm.
experienced. There were times where I wasn't happy with how something went, and I'd say 80% of the time that was received really well. And if it wasn't received perfectly well, it was more through the guise of like, oh, is there any way we can make this work? Because they're trying to save the booking and please
Yeah.
the client to an extent, as opposed
Yeah.
to like, no, you must do it. It was more like are you sure we can't think tank a
Yeah.
solution? That was a
Yeah.
bit like that,
Yeah.
which I understand.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
found that to be the case in even all the other establishments I've worked at. Like there's been about 3, I think. And yeah, they will always like not pressure you, but try and find a solution kind of thing. Like, oh, can you do a shorter booking, or can you do it with someone else, or like something like that, which obviously I get where they're coming from, but you wouldn't. And yeah, it's hard because I know that I've also experienced the other side of it, where there'd be girls in establishments who would be saying no to a large majority of clients because they fit a certain characteristic or a certain ethnicity. They didn't want to see them, which like obviously that's their right to do so, but from the business, like the brothel's perspective, it's like that's a big loss that they're making. So yeah, it's a complex one, but I think that everyone should have the right to be able to say no, and that should be respected.
Agreed. And I guess then that's where one of the benefits of going private, although there are plenty of downsides, like you now become entirely responsible for all your own marketing, all your own admin.
Yeah.
You don't just have clients walking through the door and you sitting there waiting
Yeah.
for them. But that is certainly one of the incentives to go private is full autonomy, full control. So, like I found that jump personally to be daunting and scary, and I spent like a solid year thinking about it,
Yeah.
researching it before it actually like happened. But for you, like, give us more detail. How did you make the jump from multiple parlors to fully independent
Mm.
work?
Yeah, well, I actually had I would say my first attempt when I tried to change was like, I was doing it fully on my own. Like, I didn't have any mentors like Isabelle or really anyone. I don't think I even really knew anyone, like, personally, who was doing private escorting. So I was totally flying blind, like, just trying to, like, copy what everyone else does. Like, I wanted to get out of the brothel. I wanted to be able to make more money for each hour that I was working. But yeah, so I did it, and, like, did a photo shoot and invested, like, quite a lot of money, to be honest, in, like, accommodation for the shoot and the photographer and new lingerie, and, like, did all this stuff, which, like, knowing what I know now, like, I would not do it that way, but that's fine. You have to learn
You had your
somehow.
cheese board, remember?
Yes, a cheese
You had
board
your
and a little
wine.
bit of wine. I know, it was a cute shoot, but, like, it didn't fucking work. So. Yeah, so I did my ad and, like, wrote everything myself, and I mean, I thought I looked great. Like, I mean, I did, but knowing what I know now as well about, like, marketing and what clients are wanting to see from you and hear from you, it's like, that's not, yeah, I was not going about it the right way. And yeah, so I did that. I had my ads up for, like, probably 6 months or so. I was still working in the brothel at the same time, like, obviously to keep myself afloat. And I think I actually had one booking in the full time that I had my ads up. And, like, yeah, again, knowing what I know now, I can identify there's so many reasons why I wasn't getting more bookings. Like, there was a lot of, like, prohibiting factors that I was kind of letting be a thing. I guess, like, I didn't have an in-call, like, I wasn't really flexible with how I was going to do things. That probably led to, yeah, being a reason why I didn't get many bookings at all. So yeah, I guess you could say I was in the net negative when I when I finished that stint. And then I kind of remember why I ended up taking my ads down for whatever reason, but I did. I think actually that's when I decided that I had enough of full service for a little while, and I wanted to have a break and go into massage.
Okay. And then the massage experience, you got to the point where, okay, I'm ready to give it a second whirl.
Yes, there was, yeah, a bunch of different factors that led to me having had enough of massage at that time. It was good while it lasted, but for a variety of personal circumstances, needed to change doing that. I couldn't really tolerate the work anymore physically, and I needed to be able to make more money per hour. I was getting like $100 for an hour's massage, which is back-breaking. So it's a tongue twister when you're doing like 6 or 7 clients a day with that kind of rate. So yeah, that's when I was like, okay, I really want to try doing escorting again. I knew that I had failed at it before, and that's when I started searching to try and find someone who has done it and someone who had done it really well. And then that was how I stumbled across your lovely YouTube. And just, yeah, the rest has been history for us.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into our topic, because you're right. Like, one of the primary attractions when it comes to extended bookings, aside from sometimes having more glamorous experiences, and you definitely get the benefit of providing, I found, a high quality experience in many ways, just because you have the virtue of time, right? But the big reason that I find most people, including myself, are wanting those sorts of bookings is just bigger lumps of cash, and then bringing the volume down. You know, if you can do a booking that we'll talk about in a moment, that's 12 grand in one hit. You might not have to work for quite a little while. So you really, in a job that is like so physical, you really get back a lot in being able to secure just higher value bookings. So I, like I said, am so proud of how well you do this, because you really took the psychology of a lot of the things that we spoke about and made it your own and really built on that. And then hearing about 2 bookings in particular that I know you got recently, where the clients had never met you before. So the first one being the 2-day trip for $12,000, and the second booking a 15-hour overnight for $6,700. That's an incredible amount of money, an incredible booking to get from clients who have never met you or seen you. So can we talk through each one and explain, like, specifically how those bookings came about? Like, what happened from the start of the client first reaching out and inquiring to the booking, like, being locked in? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, awesome. So the first guy, he's got a nickname, which is he's Mr. Farmer. He's a farmer guy. I won't say his real name. So his first message that I got from him had pretty like poor spelling and grammar. It was just like, hey, are you in my city? Just very brief and like not really much information. Had no idea how long he wanted, like anything like that. And when I like checked his number, he had reports of previously being a time waster when he'd inquired with other workers before. So thankfully at that time we were working together, and one of the things that we were focusing on was like replying to everyone, because I had a history in the past of like having a massive volume of inquiries and not having capacity to reply to everyone. So people who had time waster reports, I'd be like, not my problem, and just ignore them. So yeah, it was lucky that like we were working on that at the time, because I would have probably missed this guy otherwise. So yeah, given the context of him kind of having time waster reports and his first message being pretty brief, I just focused on getting the key information out of him just in a straightforward manner. So what time, what date, what duration, what kind of service you're after, stuff like that. I was like polite and I was direct, but I just set my usual approach. Like it wasn't anything special, because at this time I didn't know what he was going to turn into. Like it took actually like a while for it to change into that.
And what
but
was
I
your
set my
usual approach?
So I think, yeah, like being polite, being friendly, using lots of emojis, sending the selfies, stuff like that. That's probably like always my initial kind of approach, like just try and treat everyone as though they are going to be a great client. Yeah, so then we kind of established that it was going to be a 4-hour booking. I was going to go to his city, because that was the minimum that I was going to be willing to travel for. And at one point early on in the interaction, he asked if he could have some more selfies. Like, so I had sent my usual one that I send at the start, and he asked for more. And given like the time waster reports and stuff, I was like, decided not to. And I actually said to him, like, I set the boundary. I was like, yes, like once our booking is confirmed and I've got your deposit, like I'll send you some more photos. Because I was like, I don't want to just be giving this guy some like free wanking material. Like, it's just funny. And yeah, then shortly after that, he had confirmed the booking, sent his ID, and had sent the 50% deposit that I had asked for. And that was all within about 30 minutes of him messaging as well, so I could move quite quickly, which I find interesting to think about, because like I was just looking back on the messages just earlier today, because really like I didn't put any like especially particular effort into converting him. It was just my regular approach. Like I hadn't done anything out of the ordinary. I hadn't sent him extra selfies, stuff like that. But what I guess can theorize that could be kind of related to why it happened so quickly and easily was that like I had direct professional communication, which I think was quite helpful for him in having like, okay, now this is the next question, instead of being like, you know, send me all these things that I need from you if you want a booking from me and give me a deposit all in one go. Like it was just a logical step things through. And I think the directness of my communication was helpful, because as it progressed, it did appear as though he was just quite a simple man. And I think having clear directions to follow was really helpful for him.
Bless.
Yeah. Yeah. So from here, we had the deposit locked in. I had like sent more selfies, and then I was just trying to kind of get an understanding of like what he wanted to do, and if there was any kind of special requests he had. And he specifically asked if I had a denim skirt. I do remember this. And I was like, yeah, I do. And I went out of my way to like find photos of me in that skirt, find videos of me in that skirt, send them to him. So at this point, I was kind of starting to put more effort into it and kind of not go above and beyond, but just try and like give an appropriate level of effort to someone who's just paid me like a few $1,000s in a deposit. Like I think it was maybe $1,500 or something for the first deposit. So I was like, yeah, starting to do a bit more effort. And then once I had the deposit and everything confirmed, everything was locked in, I then did my upsell. So usually I would do my upsell offer prior to getting the deposit, because I want to get that locked in, you know. But something that I often do, particularly with time waster kind of guys, is I'll only do it once I've locked it in. Like I kind of like to get them confirmed for something and know that at least it's going to be X amount of time, X amount of money before I try and give them more, because I find that can sometimes be a little bit too exciting for them potentially, and they can kind of just run away with ideas. And in some ways, I think it can scare them off as well. So then I was going to do my upsell offer. So the things that I used in my special offer for him, which again, this varies client to client, but based on the context of where I was meeting him and what he'd inquired for at the start, I framed it as I was giving him a special that was like a special touring only new client special. So it wasn't available for everyone, is what I was kind of trying to say in that. I gave him, so I prompted him that we could do an overnight was my next step. And I said that I'll give him 14 hours for the price of 12 hours. So he's getting 2 hours for free, which again, that's like this financial kind of incentive. I highlighted that I wasn't going to be coming back to his area or his city anytime soon. And I kind of used that as like a bit of pressure to be like, you're going to want to do this. And then I explained in detail how longer bookings allow for like a much more natural and unrushed experience, which those two words are words that I use a lot regardless of how long I'm trying to upsell for, whether it's like 2 hours or 3 hours, trying to frame it as though like this is going to be like, trying to get those words into their mind if that's what the experience will be like. I specifically said that we'll be able to get to know each other on a deeper level. And then I also used the fact that I'm a trained masseuse to incentivize him that, I can give you a really good massage. And that's another thing that's good for those longer bookings to fill in the time. And I also threw in particularly for overnights, throwing in a thing about, we can have morning sex. Like, I feel like every guy loves that shit.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. And I later learned that the way I described this upsell and sold this offer to him was just happened to be perfect for him, because I do think that he really was an isolated and quite a lonely guy. So I think the idea of like having a week, it started off being an overnight, but turned into a weekend with, a beautiful girl who wants to do all these things with you is like super enticing.
As it would be for, I would say, 90% of clientele. Yeah, and even someone who perhaps isn't specifically lonely and in need of intimacy, like, we get the 1 in 10 guys maybe who are just curious and doing it for fun and don't necessarily need to be booking an escort. That's still enticing. Like, I get my hair done all the time. It's not necessarily special anymore, but I still want it to be a great experience. And I would definitely be more excited and more inclined to spend more if a salon could really emphasize that, which so few do. So it sounds like you did so much stuff right. What was the difference in spend? This guy contacts you already out of nowhere wanting a 4-hour booking, which we should talk about because that's uncommon. And then you get him to go from what spend to what spend with that incentive.
It would have been, it was around like $3,500 for the 4-hour booking initially, plus travel. And then the overnight, I actually can't remember the exact figure that the overnight component was. It probably would have been around $5,000 or $6,000. And then what I ended up getting him to finally was the $12,000 for a 42-hour booking, so 2-day booking. Yeah.
Okay, so we almost, not quite double, but significant increase. And then we end. So he comes in at 3.5, maybe at best 4, because he agrees to pay for your travel costs and you're completely outside his city. What happens next to take this guy to 12 grand, which is almost 4 times or 3 times the original spend?
Yeah. There was after things were locked in, there was a fair bit of back and forth. I ended up having to cancel my tour because I got sick, and then we rescheduled, and there was a whole bunch of kind of back and forth during that time. And also trying to really build the rapport as well. Like, I had phone calls with him. I was sending him selfies all the time. And something that I did have to do was set boundaries a lot of the time, because he would really try and quite like to overstep. Like, he would want to do video calls and, asking for services I don't do. And like, he would always take the direction when I gave it to him. But there was a lot of like, I think, emotional effort that really had to go into him. Like, he was and it wasn't like an easy client in that sense. But sorry, can you say the question again? I can't remember what you said.
Yeah. Yeah, so he reaches out for a 4-hour booking. You get him
Yeah,
to a 14 hour. How do you then
yeah,
get him to a 42 hour? What was the journey
oh
there?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So originally we had to reschedule because I was sick for the time that we'd agreed upon earlier, and then in the process of like rescheduling that, he actually just self prompted. Like we were trying to find a new date for a weekend, and he was like, "Yeah, literally just self prompted. Like, can we actually do a weekend?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we can, 100%." So gave him all the details of how we would do that, and the way that I kind of got to that figure as well, I explained it to him in a really kind of like logical way, which is what I try and do with these bigger bookings. Instead of just being like, okay, yeah, sure, 2 days is $12,000. I broke it down for him. So I stipulated what the travel costs would be. I explained how, based on the hourly rate for an overnight booking, which like ended up being around like $300 or $400 per hour across all those 12 or 14 hours. I explained to him that a 42-hour booking would be, it was something like $15,000 or $16,000. And then I framed it to him as, but considering you're booking for a long time and it's your first time, like I'm happy to bring that down and make it seem as though they're getting like an extra good deal. And yeah, and because he had already like self-initiated the fact that he wanted to do a weekend, I was able to just ride off his own enthusiasm and be like, yeah, explained it to him, and yeah, he was keen on it. And I also I threw in extra services as well. So I added on like premium services that were from a different service tier to what he had booked and threw them in for free, just like again as an incentivization for him to lock that in.
Very, very nicely done. You
Mm,
said something earlier that I want to circle back to. So
mm,
I hear what you're saying. Like the clients, they're getting excited. You're investing more time in them. They're investing time with you, and they can overstep, or at least I don't think always intentionally overstep, but wanting to do
yeah,
things like speak to you on a video call. I mean, I totally get that. If the roles were reversed and I was booking an experience like this and spending a lot of money, I too would probably want to speak to the person on a video call. So, how is it that
mm,
you were able to say no? And then
mm,
still have him continue to be willing to spend more? How did you like
yeah,
specifically handle that when he said, "Hey Freya, let's do a video call"? How do you say
mm,
no without it being negative?
yeah. Yeah. And it was hard as well because I had never faced a situation like this before. So yeah, for me there was a lot of learning through this process of how to deal with these kinds of clients, because I think they do really have a different, like they're looking for a different experience to compared to what someone who wants just a 1 hour booking. Um, so I think, and he did challenge me quite a lot, to be honest. Like there was often like a barrage of messages from him, kind of drunk calls, calling me past my bedtime, and like just constant messaging, like never really going more than a few days without getting a message from him. So it was pretty intense, to be honest. But given the value of the booking, I was like, I know that I need to, manage myself on this and work through it. But yeah, I was pretty clear with my boundaries with him, and I would always say like explicitly, like when he was asking for the video call, for example, instead of a regular phone call, like I would say to him like, no, I can't do that because of my discretion. Like I'm not willing to do that. But then I would always frame it as like giving him something that he wants kind of in return, or like not having it just be like no. So I would say like, I can't do a video call, but I'm happy to speak with you on the phone at X day, X time, and I'll send you some photos like before and after our call to like get your imagination going. So like just kind of like tried to work around, and I even I did a call with him where I like, yeah, I had a specific kind of like, oh, what's this thumbs up coming up on my screen? Sorry. I had a specific like, yeah, little fantasy idea to tell him about, and I sent him a photo like on the call, like obviously something I'd just taken before, and then I sent him another one afterwards to just like, yeah, get his imagination going. So stuff like that, you can make it work. But I think it is really important to be firm on your boundaries with clients like this, because if you start to let them slip, um, yeah, you're not going to feel good about going into a booking like that. And yeah, it's important to keep them firm.
Yeah, you also set the precedent for yourself internally. Like, I think the client
Yeah.
is one thing, of course, but I find, like, if I think back to situations where I've blurred lines with clients, it always starts small. Like, even in my personal life, where I've
Hmm.
blurred lines
Hmm.
with relationships or like intimate or non-intimate, it's the self-delusion about it, I think. Oh, it's just this small thing. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's not a big deal. And then you kind of
Hmm.
get on, I think, a snowball of breaking your own boundaries. Whereas if you recognize that the most important part of it is keeping the boundary in place to prove to yourself that you can, regardless of the outcome, it becomes less about the external situation and the stress of that and more about who do I want to be as a person. And then the
Yeah.
natural result of that, anyway, often, as long as the client has good intentions and you communicate it as positively as
Mm.
possible, is that the outcome is what you want it to be, which is that they
Yeah.
keep the booking and move on anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Nice one. Okay. And
Hmm.
so then I know that you got deposits like along the way. What
Hmm.
was, which would have helped you, right, to be willing to do these things with him because like he'd put his money where his mouth was. What
Yeah.
kind of deposit did you get for in the end where he booked 12 grand of value?
Yeah. In the end, I actually ended up getting the full amount from him prior to our booking going ahead. So it was $12,000, which I actually can't even really remember how exactly that came about. But he'd paid like more than 50%, and then for whatever reason, he just wanted to pay the rest of it prior to his booking. I don't know why. I think some guys like to have it kind of paid off before they get there, so it just feels a bit easier for them. But yeah, so I ended up like it was a progression as well. Like it started off with the 4 hour booking, $1,500 deposit, and then we went up to the overnight. It went up to like a few thousand deposit, and then the next step was up to 7,000 or something, and then he ended up paying another 5,000 to finish it off. So yeah, I ended up getting the full amount up front, which is uncommon for a booking that large.
But what did you ask for and what do you usually ask for from these big
Mm.
bookings?
For any booking where I'm traveling to them, like if it was in Melbourne, it would be a different story. But I was having to book flights, I was booking accommodation, I was booking hire cars because the location of our booking changed multiple times, and like there was a lot of stuff that went on kind of behind the scenes. But I always asked for 50% of the booking fee plus travel costs additional. So say it was a $10,000 booking, it'd be 50%, so $5,000, and then whatever my travel fees are additional to that.
That's a lot of money for someone who has never seen your face, doesn't know who you are. There's no legal recourse to get that money back. It's a lot of money for somebody to put up. And I think sometimes we forget that because obviously
Yeah.
we're thinking about from our perspective, which is completely reasonable, and you are putting up a lot of money and it is a risk.
Mm.
But at the same time, the client doesn't know you, doesn't know what's happening behind the scenes. Do you ever get any pushback on that amount of money, asking for it up front?
Mm. To be honest, I haven't ever, for people, I think he's the only person who I've ever had to ask for 50% for. But for regular bookings, like even for like other longer bookings, it'll just be a 20% deposit. There are some instances where I will do it slightly more. Generally when it's like at a time that's going to be quite inconvenient to me if they cancel. So like if I'm doing a really early morning booking at like 7 a.m. or something, I'll sometimes do like a 35% deposit. But yeah, thankfully I haven't had much pushback in regards to that. But it could be because the deposit amount is obviously a lot smaller than 50% for an interstate booking.
How do you phrase it specifically when you ask for deposits?
It's a good question. I generally like the deposit is always the last step for me. Like everything else needs to be locked in stone, like where we're meeting, how long, all that kind of stuff. And I think because along the way I'm putting in effort to build rapport and show interest in the kind of experience that they want to have, even if it is just like a 1 or 2 hour booking or something like that. I assume that rapport building and showing interest and building excitement is what allows me to have less pushback when it comes to the deposit. And I also think guys who are booking those longer bookings, they know that they need to secure that time with you by paying a deposit. Like I think if anything, I get more pushback on 1 hour or 2, like shorter bookings being like, oh, I don't want to give you $200. Like they don't want to commit to it because it's less for them, overall. Whereas if you're spending like 5, 6, 7, 10 grand or whatever on a experience, by the time you're like ready to commit to it, like you're invested, like you're gonna be ready to like, yes, put your money where your mouth is. So yeah, I don't know if that answers things.
It does really well. So you're really waiting till it's like the last piece of the puzzle, and then you fill it in a bow with the, and now the deposit.
yeah, literally, like everything else is confirmed, and then I'll just let them, like, we'll have, made sure everything's locked in, and then ask for it, and it works well.
And so this 16 or 15 hours for 6,700, that was a different client again, completely new.
Yes.
Talk us through that one.
Yes. So he, this was just at the start of the year in January, early Jan. He had inquired for a 4-hour booking for my most expensive service, so VIP PSE. And it was the same day booking as well, which for, like, generally speaking, longer bookings like that, they normally do book further in advance. And I actually was meant to be like, I had finished work for the week. I was meant to be going on holidays the next day. I was like, I'm done. And then it came through and I was like, okay, I better do it. But yeah, it was he had a very like straightforward inquiry. He kind of like gave me most of the information that I needed from him initially, compared to like the farmer guy, where it was like, I kind of had to really step him through things. But yeah, it was quite straightforward. But I guess a good point to make is that I still, like, regardless of the information he had given me, I still followed the same process and brought the same energy. So, still asked him all the questions, clarified the service he wanted, sent him the selfies, like all that kind of stuff. I try and do that consistently, no matter how someone inquires, which I think is a really important, an important thing across the board, but also with leading to these longer bookings as well. So yeah, I sent the selfies and I explained like what my 4-hour bookings usually are like, because generally it'll be like a 2-hour social, 2-hour in the room. And generally it's like a dinner date, or we go out for a drink, like does need to be kind of out of the room. And I also, I put, which again, I would do this for anyone, but with him, I, put some effort into being like, so where do you want to go for dinner? Like, what kind of food do you like? Just trying to get an idea. I mean, if anything, I was more doing that for my kind of interest, like, where do you want to go? Like, am I going to like the food that you like? Like, are we going to be on the same vibe? But, trying to suss him out in that sense, which I think that showed the interest and showed the rapport building that I was like wanting to know what kind of experience he wanted to have, and was able to use that to form things along. And so I requested the deposit. We started talking about where we'd go for dinner, and then he hadn't sent the deposit yet. And then literally straight after I asked for it, he then self-prompted for an overnight. Was just like, actually, like, could we do an overnight? Like, it was his last day in Melbourne, and he was heading out interstate after that. And so I was like, yes, like, amazing, like, let's do it. And just showed, that enthusiasm. And so I gave him, which interestingly, I actually didn't even give him a special. So I thought that I did when I was thinking back about it, but I read through the messages earlier and I didn't. I just gave him the option, the prices for a 12-hour overnight or a 14-hour overnight. And again, like, just highlighted how, the longer bookings allow for it to be unrushed, and we can take our time, and we can have morning sex and all that kind of stuff within that message. And to be honest, like, having done an overnight now, 12 hours is not enough for an overnight. Like, I need to sleep. It's super short. Like, you really have to be rushing out in the morning, and it's just not very fun for anyone. But yeah, so he then self-selected the 14 hour, so the longer option, and paid the deposit straight away. And yeah, again, it's like, thinking about it, it's hard to identify exactly why these clients are self-selecting these longer bookings. Like, it's interesting, and I don't know if that's necessarily super common for everyone. But my thinking is, again, that it comes back to like the professional communication, sending the sexy selfies, like building the excitement. And I think particularly describing what the kind of booking is that we're going to have together. Like, if you start describing it like, oh, we can do this, and then we can have a bath, and then we can blah, 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 like, it starts like getting their mind going of like, oh, okay, like, it's going to be this whole thing. Like, yeah, I think that really helps with, getting them over the line.
So he actually inquired for a 4-hour dinner date, and then throughout your communication asked about those
Yeah.
options, you explained.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I talk to people every day, and it's not common at all. And most people are thinking about, how do I market to specifically get those clients? This is how you do it, is you make it to, or like, an obvious self-selection, and focus on the experience. Just like, imagine, I tell people, if you went shopping at Louis Vuitton, if you are going to be encouraged to spend more, it's not with just like a menu and prices sitting there. It's going to be like looking at the bag, holding the bag, feeling it, the sales assistant being like, imagine wearing it with this outfit out with your friends. Like, it's really bringing
Yeah.
the experience to life, and then you will justify the spend yourself. This is all sales because you want it, because it's like hitting on a deep emotional need, which is like what you're doing. And also, Freya, that it's done so infrequently. So they're probably not used to that sort of experience. And then when you do experience it, it's like, man, that's like, I might not get to see this girl again. I better
Wow.
take
Yeah.
advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
something I think that's interesting as well is, because I don't even have, like, I mean, I think I see a lot of girls on their ads saying like, overnight booking, this is what we'll do, like, putting it all on their ad, putting the price on. Whereas I list that I do longer bookings, but I just say to contact me, which is like kind of for two reasons. One, because I think if you have it all listed on your ad, you might be missing out on clients who that doesn't fit what they're looking for in a way. Like, it might intimidate them, or it might be not exactly what they're after. And then it also allows me to customize an experience for someone, but also customize the rate, because like, depending on what they want to do with their time, like, I'm probably going to charge them differently. So yeah, I think it's interesting. It's like, I don't even necessarily specifically advertise for these bookings. It's actually just a conversion through text.
Yeah, you make a fantastic point. And a lot of people listening will be thinking, what do you do to even get a client to contact you for a full hour? And because I know your profile, I can tell you a few things. You have endless reviews, and clients like speaking to the quality of the experience. I'm sure you've got in there, because there are so many clients who talk about the extended experience, and there's just so much social proof, and the profile speaks to the kind of experience a client's going to have, as opposed to like what you want them to book and how much you want them to spend. And again, it's like, Louis Vuitton doesn't need to tell you about the specific thing they want you to buy. They just need to create an experience that is emotionally compelling and enjoyable, and the customer will take care of the rest.
And interestingly that you mentioned reviews, because that overnight client specifically, he wrote an amazing review for me. And he specifically commented on like my professionalism, how easygoing I was, how straightforward the booking experience was. And he ended up, the way he described his review, like, really took someone through what it was like to have an overnight. And I hadn't had any reviews like that before. And I actually know, like, regulars of mine have seen that specific review and have then asked about overnights. So like, having reviews that specifically describe those kinds of experiences, I think are invaluable, because it really gets people imagining it, but then from another perspective, like from the client's perspective, not just what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's incredible, because nobody knows what the client needs to hear better than the client. And that's why advice that I often give is, go and look at your own reviews. Like, look at the words that clients themselves use, look at other workers' reviews, and just feed those words back to clients. Same thing, imagine if you were going for a high quality experience, you're reading the reviews, you're hearing your situation explained in somebody else's words, and seeing exactly what it is that you need to see. What you just mentioned as well about the process. So another girl, Natalie, she just did 55K this last month. Very similar to you, Freya, like, gets long bookings, just self-selected. Same thing, we barely advertise them. And in, I think, 80% of her reviews, it talks about the ease of the booking process, because particularly in today's day and age, and particularly for, I think, like, wealthy people where they're busy and there's stuff going on in their lives, the ease of the experience is really, really important too. Like, sure, they want a high quality experience and they're willing to pay for that, but a high quality experience that is inaccessible because somebody doesn't reply, because there's so many steps to go through, because the person's never available. It's like, I might really want an Hermes bag, but if I have to be on a waiting list for 12 months and I want a new bag, like for an outfit that I'm going out for like in 3 days' time, it's like, fuck that. I'm not waiting
Mm-hmm.
a year for the bag. Like, I'm sure obviously there are some people who will, but there are a lot of people who won't wait, who have money to spend. And so
Mm-hmm.
the ease of the process too, and the client seeing that and knowing that like I'm actually going to get a booking with her and it's going to be an enjoyable experience, would I bet be something that you get comments on about a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So then let's
Mm.
talk about, because getting the extended date is like all well and good and everybody wants that. But then it's like, I have 14 hours with this human I've never met before. Shit.
Literally.
Yeah. So like, how do you make an extended date then something that is like a high quality experience that a client wants to come back for, especially if it's somebody that's booked it like raw off the bat for the first time? Like, how do
Mm.
you fill up all of that time?
Yeah. It was so intimidating the first time I did it. I was terrified. So the same kind of rule does apply for a lot of them. But yeah, it was terrifying going into it. I was like, what am I going to do with this strange man for 14 hours? But particularly for the overnight bookings, my first port of call always is to have a phone call with them. So once I've received the deposit, always, I will suggest, to have a quick phone call. And this like serves multiple purposes. It builds excitement on the client side. Like, it shows that you're real. It shows that like you're interested in like hearing about what kind of experience they want to have, and just like breaking the ice a little bit as well. Which I find really valuable. Like, you can just start to get a bit of an insight of like, who are they, where are they from, like just to kind of get an understanding of that kind of stuff. But then secondly, it gives me a lot of peace of mind to like know that, to hear the person's voice, to be honest. Like, it's like, I've gotten their ID, I've got their deposit, like, technically that's, it's fine, but I just want to know that like they don't sound like a fucking psycho killer on the other side of the phone, and they can hold a conversation and like be kind of normal. So I think that's always great, and I think as well it adds to that level of like professionalism and like great communication. So and it really builds excitement for them. Like, they get to hear your voice and hear you laugh, and like really creates that experience. Within that phone call, I always try and like to get an idea of like what kind of experience they're wanting to have. Like, do they want to go out for dinner? Do they want to get a massage together? Do you want to be in nature? Like, what kind of things are they interested in? Something that I found from those calls that I have had with these kind of clients is that they often don't know what they want. It can often be a first time for that kind of long booking with someone. So kind of being prepared for the fact that they might not know, and just like being able to show them that you're able to lead them through the experience and, give them suggestions and come up with ideas of what you can do together. I think it's going to be really important. Then the next thing I like to do is have at least one activity outside the hotel room that's booked in. So generally speaking, it's a dinner or something like that, where we will leave the hotel for a few hours. And like, for me, just mentally knowing that I'm going to leave the hotel room for a little while is like really important for me. It's like, I'm not just going to be like locked in with them for 7 hours straight and then we go to sleep, and then it's just like, that's a lot. So then something I also do, like once those things are kind of confirmed and you've got the deposit, you've done the call, you've started to figure out what they want, I'll always let them know that I need like a certain amount of hours uninterrupted sleep. So like, I've heard horror stories of friends who have done overnights and the client's like trying to like get on them all night, and like they're not able to sleep, like they're trying to get their dick out, like it just like isn't good. So just setting the expectation that we will be going to sleep for 7 hours, like separate, like in the same bed, but we'll be keeping our hands to ourselves kind of thing is really important. And then I also like to say that I will be needing to step out for like just about 15 minutes at some point during the night just to make a call. I generally frame it as like a safety call, just to like check in with my safety person to let them know I'm all good. But I actually just need it to like just call my sister or someone for a little while and just be like, okay, I just need to like debrief, or even just like sit in the lobby for like 10-15 minutes. Like, I just need that time to really calm down. And then in terms of managing the time, I apply this to any longer booking, but especially if you're going to be spending an extended amount of time with someone, is just to have a plan in my head of like how we're going to spend the time together. So, for example, the overnight that I had in January, I was like, okay, I'll get there at 6 o'clock. We'll spend, maybe an hour to 90 minutes chatting and get the first round in, then break the ice and like start to get that happening. Then we'll get ready for dinner. We'll go to dinner. That'll be till like, 8:30 or 9. Then we'll come home. I'll put a new outfit on. I'll bring these little fun card games that are going to be like sexy for us to play, and that's just like something novel and fun to do. And then we'll have another round, and then I'll go have my phone call, and then we'll go to bed. And then I'll wake up at this time, I'll go for the morning sex, and then I'll be ready to leave, kind of thing. So just like mentally preparing, like, okay, this is all the things I can do. That just really helps with like, yeah, knowing that you're going to be okay with that massive amount of time. And on that, being prepared with like all the activities and all the kind of things that you can think of to bring with you in your suitcase to the overnight or the weekend booking or whatever, to fill in that time. Like if you ever come up to like you're like, oh, what have I done? Like we've run out of like things to do. We've already had sex. Like, what are we going to do? Oh my God. I like to bring like lots of different outfits, like dress up outfits, lots of toys, like a bubble bath, massage oil, like things that are just like little activities that we can do around the hotel room are, yeah, going to be very important to getting through that amount of time.
Yeah, I'm so with you on that. And I find that it serves two purposes. One, if I have that plan, the anxiety about not having a plan, regardless of whether we do the plan, is really helpful. It's kind of like knowing your safety procedures, even though hopefully, touch wood, you never have to use them. Just knowing that they're there releases the anxiety of like the inherent danger of the job. So I always found that useful. And you just don't know what sort of person you're going to get. For the most part, I found the overnights that I did, all the activities I planned, I often didn't need to do them because we'd gel, we'd get along, we'd have fun. But every now and then you get a weird Wally, and you're like,
You need to be ready.
man, yeah, this is hard work, and this is not flowing, and they're not making my life easy. And so, having that stuff just to go to,
Being ready.
is super
I know.
important.
I always bring like enough outfits so that it's like if things get super awkward, like at least I can do a fashion show for this guy. Like I'll put on my next outfit, I'll walk out of the room, be like, "Oh, you want to undress me now?" Like, like really being like, okay, if shit gets really bad, like I'll be fine.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
I like the lobby break as well, because for anybody thinking about it, if you're doing overnight with a client and you're in a hotel room and there's one bathroom and it's small and you need to do a number two, it is not comfortable to do it where the client's right outside the door. So like going downstairs to the lobby
Yeah.
is a great idea. And then one final thing I'll say about overnights, and this has happened to me once, is you can leave. You can leave like fully at any time should you want to. I did this overnight once where it was really my own fault. I hadn't dealt with the client enough pre-booking, and I went to his house and it just ended up not being a comfortable booking for various reasons. And I realized, you know what, I actually don't want to go through with the rest of this booking. I'm not comfortable. He hadn't done anything wrong. It just was like it was just not a pleasant experience. And so I came out and we'd been together for about 2 hours, and I said to him, like, John, whatever his name was, I've had a really pleasant time. Something's come up and I'm going to need to go. I'm going to refund you a pro-rated amount. So he had paid for 12 hours actually plus my travel because I traveled interstate, and I'm pretty sure I would have refunded him the travel fee, but regardless, I refunded him for 12 hours, the fee divided by 12, and I gave him back 10 hours and I just left. And obviously he was disappointed, but that's life. So you can do that too. And I think that helps. I found when I first started doing big bookings to remember that, like, I'm not, again, you want to communicate it properly, have a safety person, but for the most part, and he didn't push back at all. He was disappointed, obviously, but it's not like he caged me there. But you can leave a booking at any time. So that can help mentally too.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And so let's talk about now, like you've done so many different types of bookings, and a lot of workers I found who haven't had extended bookings, there's a little bit of a romanticization about them. Like amazing extended day, getting taken for dinner, all this stuff. And obviously, yeah, sometimes that is the case. And the bigger booking fee is obviously great, you know, the decrease in the necessity to do high volume work. But there are downsides to longer bookings, and I like to keep it real. What do you notice now that you've done them that isn't so great about these dates as compared to like 1 hour, 2 hour kind of bookings?
Mm. Yeah, I think obviously the pros of it are, like you said, you're getting a large injection of cash for that week, which is awesome. And I generally won't take like many other bookings when I have a big booking like that week. And like we said as well, like in the preparation to what you're going to do in that time with someone, for me anyway, it's a lot more daunting to know that I'm going to spend like 14, 15, 16 hours or more with someone compared to like a 1 hour or 2 hour where it's just like kind of in and out really. Um, so yeah, that can be quite daunting as well. And then for me as well, like my sleep and my routine is a massive part of what makes me feel good, and like having disturbed sleep is massive for me. So like, even though technically, yeah, I was asleep for maybe 6 or 7 hours in this overnight, like my sleep quality was terrible, and I ended up having to like, you know, take multiple days off afterwards because I was so exhausted. And then, yeah, I guess there's also like the potential safety concern as well that I really did think about. It's like, I'm going to be sleeping. Like your guard is totally down when you're sleeping. Like you can't have one eye open, checking if they're like stealing your money or if they're like trying to abduct you or something. Like it is more of a risk, I would say. And that was something that I did think about a lot in the lead up to that overnight. But again, obviously there are things you can do to mitigate those risks. But yeah. And then lastly, I think for me is I found the extended social time actually quite challenging. I'm kind of someone who is probably not super neurotypical, so like it does take a lot of effort for me to, you know, engage in those situations, and I know that I'm good at it, but it's just quite taxing on me. And so, you know, when you're spending like 7 or 8 hours and then sleeping next to them and then waking up in the morning, like it's a lot of energy to kind of put into someone, and I did find that quite challenging to manage.
Yeah, I concur on all of those things. By the end of my career, I preferred one max 2 hour bookings, and I've
Yeah.
dealt with a lot of workers after many, many years who feel the same. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Even though you pay a physical toll, obviously, if you can get your rates high enough, which I did at $2,000 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
it was way easier emotionally. And even in some ways physically, because I found after like a lot of practice that I was very good at providing a good service while delaying intercourse, so
Yeah.
that like wasn't physically as drained. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
in a 15-hour booking, like they're not just there for the physical component, but they're still there for the physical component, and
Yeah.
like they definitely want to
Yeah.
have a
It's both.
luxurious like physical experience, and
Yeah.
that is taxing, particularly when you're not always naturally aroused. So you're using
Mm-hmm.
lube and condoms, and unlike, you know, a personal experience where you've got like the natural lubrication and you're into the person. But even
Mm-hmm.
if the guy's a nice guy, there's still an element of it that isn't that way. And so I would also find those long bookings physically
Mm-hmm.
difficult in the same way that you're talking about, but physically difficult down there in ways that sometimes multiple 1 hour bookings didn't do, provided I paced
Yeah.
myself and I managed the interaction in the room.
Yeah. I would actually agree. And it's funny, like it's now something that I'm also kind of, not that I'm trying to go away from these extended dates because I do still want them, but kind of more the middle kind of guys who want like 3 to 4 hours. With them, I'm even trying to, instead of upselling them on time, upselling them on services. So like adding in extra services as a way to make more money, as opposed to like spending even more time with them kind of thing. I've actually got a funny little story. There's a client who is a long-term regular of mine who I started seeing back when I was like at a massage agency making $100 an hour, right? He's followed me all the way along, all through my rate increases, all the way up. Now I'd see him for 30 minutes generally, actually, I think it started off with. Now our average booking, like every time I see him, it's always 3 hours. It's always VIP PSC, which is a more than $3,000 booking. And we have this funny little, like, with him, I don't do the normal upsell that I normally do because obviously, like, we know each other. But we have this funny little thing because one time in a booking, he said to me, like, oh, Freya, like, don't don't ever let me book 2 hours. Like, it's not enough time. I always want 3 hours with you. So every time he texts me, he says like, oh, hey Freya, like, can I have 2 hours on this date? And I'll say like, no problem, winky face, like, I'll book you in for your 3. And he's like, great, thank you. Like, it's just this like funny little dynamic. But like, yeah, he has come all the way along from like, you know, $100 for 30 minutes or something up to like, yeah, over $3,000 for 3 hours. And yeah, it's pretty amazing what you can do.
Yeah, and that's a tribute to the service that you're providing. That's incredible
Yeah.
to get somebody who, yeah, came in spending that to now coming. Because just think about that. Like, imagine if you were going to, I don't know, a personal trainer and you meant then they're charging $50. You know, you can go elsewhere and get the same, well, not the same service, obviously, but get the service for $50. They go up and up and up. You keep going with them and growing with them because you really see the value. Like, that's a tribute to the service provider. So, good job.
Thanks.
Many escorts I speak to like really want to secure the extended dates, like particularly when they haven't experienced it before. And I think, like all people, and myself included, before I went private, before I met Estelle Lucas, and didn't, you know, I saw other girls charging $1,000 an hour, and I didn't truly believe, I think, that I would be able to do it. So think back, Freya, to like before you started getting these types of bookings, what could have really helped you to hear before you ever experienced or saw this for yourself? What would have helped you to hear, to kind of believe that it could happen?
I think that like something that I've learned along the way, just in general, but something that's really important is that like getting really comfortable and skilled in how to like do the upsell, but also just the communication process and how to just have a really standardized approach to everyone. I think that is really invaluable. Like, I think that has been quite a testament to how I've been able to get these kinds of bookings and just like regular bookings as well. And yeah, within that, I think just like instead of like trying to be like, okay, how am I going to get an overnight? Just break it, like start small. Be like, okay, I'm going to upsell every 1 hour to a 2 hour. Like, I'm going to offer that to everyone and like figure out how to word it and look at like what kind of responses you get from people, or if they come back to you with like a counter offer, sometimes that can be a thing. So you can think about changing things around so it seems as though they're getting what they want, but you're still getting what you want. I think that's really important. I think something as well, like what we've been talking about, is like what you will do in these longer bookings is really important that you get comfortable on, in like learning like, what am I going to do even in a 2 hour, if that's double the amount of time that you're used to spending with the client, or, you know, your first 4 hour, your first 6 hour, like trying to start slow at structuring your sessions. It's like, okay, what am I going to do with this 2 hours, or start like this, like, because you need to have a flow in these bookings, like, and that's something that I've definitely gotten a lot better at. Yeah, you need to kind of be able to control the dynamic in a lot of ways. Like, you need to make sure they don't come straight away and then like they can't get it up again later on. Like, just like these kind of things, like planning how the session is going to run is a skill in itself. So I think getting comfortable with that. And I think something as well to think about is that there were plenty of clients that I had tried to do these upsells with. Like, you know, I remember there was a couple where they had wanted a 2 hour and I wanted to try and get them to a 4 hour. And at that time I had never had a 4 hour booking. So I was doing everything I could to try and word the upsell and to make it seem as enticing as possible, give them an incentive, all that kind of stuff. But there are plenty of people who said no up until, you know, people started saying yes, and people started self-selecting. So I think just remembering that you just have to keep doing it and learning through that process is really important. And I guess lastly, like, it's important to also think about, as we've discussed, that there are pros and cons to these bookings as well, like anything. And I think when you're first starting out, it can seem like super glamorous and super like, oh my God, like I get to go, like have this $10,000 booking, like at a nice hotel, like all this kind of stuff. Like, that's awesome. And like, I agree. But you also have to keep in mind that, like we said, you might hate this client and they might have a disgusting dick and you're going to have to deal with them for 14 hours. Like, you have to keep that in mind, that it's not necessarily going to be how you imagine it, and that it might be more challenging than you expect. So yeah, I think those would probably be my main tips for someone who is like, oh my God, I want the long bookings. Not to disincentivize you from trying, because obviously it's amazing money, but yeah, just keeping it all in perspective.
Yeah, I think the perspective is really helpful. Then to remember that the long booking is for the client. Like,
Yes.
we're, we're providing a service, we're service providers, and obviously we want to enjoy our jobs and have a great time. And I'd say that to anybody in any profession. But at the same time, if a client's booking an overnight experience, you're there to ideally provide them with an experience that they are really wanting and really need. And that's really not about you first. It's not about you having the dinner that you want or getting the presents that you want or getting the tip that you want. It's about giving somebody fair value that they have decided is important to them in their lives. And that if you go in with that frame, you will get more repeat clientele for sure. But also the point ideally is not about you and your glamorous experience. And if that is the point, in my experience, you'll probably get less of those bookings because you won't be coming at it from the frame and perspective that the client really needs to hear and feel. Like, again, if you were going to a high-end experience and you felt like the provider basically just like wanted to have the opportunity to showcase their skills and have some amazing time for them, it's not that incentivizing for you, and that does come across.
Yeah, I agree. And I was actually going to say that before, is like when I was talking about what kind of things I like to prepare going into an experience like this so that it can be like enthusiastic and I can have all these like really fun, different things that a client's probably never been able to do before. Like they might have never played a sex card game or done dress ups or anything like that. So that kind of novelty is awesome. But having those things are really important to making sure they feel like they're getting the value out of it. Because again, like if I had it my way and I was doing it overnight with a client, I would like want to go out for a nice dinner, not have sex, watch a movie, and then go to bed at night and read my book. Like that's what I would like to do for a night out at a hotel. But like obviously that's not what they're booking me for, right? So just having and like I think you can still enjoy it and enjoy the fun of it and how it's novel, and you get to go see a nice hotel, and like I'm someone who does like those things even if it's not an experience for me. But just keeping in mind that, you need to make it about them. And, like, that's what all bookings are like, but even more so, I think, for these longer bookings.
Agreed. So agreed. And I agree with your idea of a good night. That's my idea of a good time.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll add to that might help as well for people who are wanting these sorts of bookings but haven't experienced it yet is that it can feel daunting originally to do things like upsell, suggest longer time, and I believe it's because there is a psychology around sales societally which is seen as bad. And then you throw in our profession on top of that and the stigma that there is around that. Yeah, even worse, right? Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Remember that in my opinion, we're providing a valuable service to people who really need it, who have self-selected that this is important. And as long as you believe what you're saying, like when I would suggest more time to clients so that they had an unrushed experience, I meant it. And I put my all behind that because I knew I would create a better experience. I knew that we would be more connected. I knew that they would experience more of what they were wanting. And if you really believe that, regardless of whether the person chooses to book it or not for whatever reason, you are doing the right thing by seeking to maximize the value and experience for everybody who comes to you. It'd be like if you went to a therapist and you were like, oh, I just want one session. And they were like, well, we're going to deal with this deep trauma. I really believe that you will get more value and heal these like, traumatic wounds if you have 10 sessions. And as long as they believe that and that's true, whether or not, like they're actually ethically not doing right by you to not suggest that. And so
I agree.
Yeah, so that can help too if we're feeling like we're being salesy, is that as long as you genuinely believe and intend on providing an overall better experience in a fair exchange of value, ethically you're doing the right thing to make that suggestion and then let the client decide.
Yeah, I agree. You have to get comfortable with that notion of upselling. And it does feel weird at first until you kind of get used to it. But like, I think, and like I know we've talked about this before, but it's like, ideally you want to be able to get to a spot where you can upsell anything. Like no matter how you have to frame it, no matter how you do it, like we'll be upselling, like you'll be spending more money. Like, and also like, obviously they're going to get more value out of it. Like, because for me, if they're spending more money than what they anticipated on spending, like I'm going to be much more excited for that booking. I'm going to be much more energetic for that booking. I'm going to put a lot more effort into that booking. Like it is proportional for like who's getting what, I think. But yeah, you've got to be able to learn to get comfortable with upselling it all.
Yeah, and to really believe it. And I think the reverse is true. And I reflect back on when I was a new worker and new to business in all respects. is when I discounted my time, like proper discount, like, oh, it's 1,000, but sure, you can have it for 700. The reverse is true. I always showed up less enthused, less
Same.
groomed, less everything for those bookings because I felt like I wasn't being valued. Where, of course, like I was part of that decision. No one can force me to go in for a discounted service. But in all areas of business, I have experienced that. And I've
Yeah.
experienced it as a customer. You know, I've had personal trainers that have given me discounts or friends that have given me mates rates. They never provide the value that I want when the service is discounted. So, again, it's in the customer's best interest to get the best possible service and to pay fairly for that so that they can actually access it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right, so this has been a great conversation, babe.
So good.
Let's wrap up. Tell us your funniest or weirdest, I'll take a weird, strange story too, client story ever, and then like how you dealt with it if relevant.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably endless strange stories that I could discuss, like years in brothel, like you don't even want to know. But I thought I would kind of frame the question a little bit, and it's not, really a funniest story, but I guess it's more a bit of an insight into how the strategies and the stuff that we've talked about earlier on in this podcast can benefit your business in the long term. Because like obviously both of these bookings that we've discussed about today, they've been one-off bookings. I mean, one of them actually has rebooked since then, but he's not from Melbourne, so it's not a regular thing. But I have another client who I guess followed a similar kind of storyline in how our booking kind of progressed into being a longer appointment. So he kind of originally started off wanting a 2-hour, and then it went to 3 hours, and then it went to 4, and then it went to 6. And all the while we hadn't met each other. We actually didn't even have a date locked in for a lot of the time, but he had confirmed the deposit. He really wanted to meet me. And because I'd gotten the deposit from him, I was, putting in the effort to build rapport and to build excitement and to make him, excited for the booking. And it was, again, one of those storylines where he just was self-selecting longer and longer. Like, he would be talking to me, being like, oh, Freya, you're so amazing. I want to spend more time with you. Like, let's do this. And so, yeah, he ended up he's now one of my, like, longest term regulars. And he's also my, like, highest spending regular client as well. Like, in terms of lifetime spend of how long I've been seeing him for. And yeah, not only that, like the kind of self-selection of progressing to a longer 6-hour booking, but I was also able to upsell in between these longer bookings, because we would do these 6 hours maybe like every 2 months or so. And then in between those, I kind of would start suggesting like a shorter duration in call where we just come over and have more of like a fun, like sexually kind of fired time where we can have like fantasy like role plays and all that kind of stuff. Because when we were doing the longer bookings, it would be we're at a hotel, we would go out for lunch, we would go shopping. Like, it was much more of just a different experience. So I kind of liked to add these exciting bookings, shorter bookings in to be like spicing it up, I guess. And like obviously he loved them as well, so like that was just an additional way to have more regular income coming in. So yeah, and then something that's quite unique about this client particularly, like he's a lovely client, like I really do really appreciate having him around, but he has, I guess you could say, a bit of a fetish or a kink for like buying designer luxury items for me, which is like insane. And like I think it's the thing that a lot of girls like hear about and see about, being like, oh my god, that's what I want. But it's not, I don't think it's actually really very common. But the first time I met him, he bought me 2 pairs of Christian Louboutin heels, and like he's bought me lingerie and dresses and handbags, and he's talking about buying me a freaking Birkin at some point, and I'm just like, this is crazy. But yeah, I think it's like, that's obviously a unique circumstance, and not every client is like that. But I think it's, it's important to remember, like, by putting in the effort and putting in the consistency to all of the clients, no matter like how they first interact with you, like you never know who they can become. And he is really testament to that. It's like, yeah, he's a good one. And I think on the consistency as well, it's like, I don't want to make that seem as though that's like so easy for everyone to do as well. Like, even for myself included, it is really hard sometimes when you're managing, like I manage multiple work phones for multiple profiles, and, like trying to always remain consistent, always to sound friendly, always to put in the effort to, try and get the most out of a client, even if they're kind of acting like a time waster and stuff like that, is, yeah, it's really important. But don't underestimate how much effort you do actually need to like actively put into that, I would say.
Yeah, well, not have to, but if you do, effort takes effort, right?
Definitely.
I hear that. Freya, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you today.
It's been so good to talk to you.
I'm actually going to end on two final tips that have come up in my mind as we've been speaking. Is for these longer bookings, guys, I really recommend getting bigger deposits up front and consider communicating some kind of cancellation policy, so that situations where like things are extended and you are putting in a lot of effort, that if a client cancels, that it's clear how that's going to be dealt with. And my recommendation is, whenever you communicate any kind of policy, is that you use a bit of a sandwich effect and always frame it in the way of how it's to the benefit of everybody involved. So for example, it could be something like and I usually communicate cancellation policies about bookings after I've received the deposit, and typically I found that has not been an issue, although some people may choose to approach it differently. I will basically say, if you need to make changes to our plans, then I ask for 3 days notice to make sure I can accommodate them. Otherwise, the deposit is forfeited. Something as simple as that. And then I will go on to focus again on the positive of the booking. And that has never been received poorly, but at least then everybody knows how something's going to be dealt with. Secondly, again, if something is booked way in advance, I highly recommend that you continue to check in, because when the client is left dormant, they can cancel anytime, and no booking is a booking until you've been paid in full and the booking has occurred. And I will ramp up my communication closer to the time of the booking with that fact in mind, particularly if the client hasn't paid in full, and particularly if we're outside the cancellation period. So if a client books a month in advance, I'm probably going to touch base each week. And then the week of the booking, I'm going to ramp up my communication. So 7 days out, I'll contact them. I'll probably contact them again 3 days in advance. I'll contact them the day before the booking, and then I'll contact them the day of the booking. And I'm doing things like sending selfies, videos. If I'm comfortable having phone calls, I'll have short time-based phone calls. Does this seem like a lot of work? Yes, but at the same time, I don't want to lose a $12,000 booking. And if I manage it properly, it doesn't need to be extensive. It can be like a 10-minute phone call, a 5-minute phone call. You can use selfies that have been pre-taken. Just remembering again, what would you like to experience if things were reversed? And that will help to decrease cancellations and reschedules and things of that nature.
Agreed.
Awesome. Okay, well, I hope everybody enjoyed this episode and took away something valuable. Before we wrap up, I really want to give a special shout out to Samantha Jones out of Toronto, Canada, for being just a consistent source of support for fellow workers. Something like a big sister, actually. Samantha is a veteran of the industry. She's got over 10 years experience, and I have personally seen her go out of her way to help her colleagues freely time and time again. So I just want to say, Samantha, you're making a real difference. I and everyone you've helped so appreciates you. Please keep it up. If you would like to learn more about Escort Academy, just head to escortacademy.co. I also post daily educational content, guys, under my personal name, Isabelle Fox, on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Blue Sky, and Facebook. All of the places. And this podcast, of course, has its own dedicated channels as well. To find all of my personal links, go to @IsabelleFoxEscort on YouTube, or check the episode notes below. You will also find a link to sign up for our free industry email newsletter, where I share weekly tips about how to attract high-paying clients and earn more money. Freya, where is the best place for other workers to connect with you?
I'm on Twitter, or X as it's now called. My handle on there is just Freya Svensson, which is spelled SVENSSON, and an underscore at the end.
Nice one. Are you open to workers connecting with you, asking for tips and tricks?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm going to be creating some more socials in the near future as well. So I should be on TikTok and Instagram and maybe some other platforms soon. But at the moment, yeah, X is where I can be found, and I'm more than happy to connect with everyone.
Love that. Thanks, Freya. Remember, guys, like together we can make this industry different. I know a lot of us come into it feeling alone, unsupported. And as I said earlier, it's our mission on this podcast to make a change to that. But the more we band together and provide the support that we so desperately need to each other, the better we can make this industry for everybody. And so I want to finish on just a little reminder that sometimes we go through hard times. I know that I certainly have so many times in my life, and particularly in this industry, it could be really like quite hard, quite lonely, really difficult, challenging things that we deal with, like manipulative clients, unsupportive loved ones. And so if you're in a place like that right now, I just want you to know that I believe in you. You can get through it. Pain can be, even though it's painful, transformative. And you just need to hang in there and keep going. And remember that if you got into this industry for a reason, you can reap the rewards. Just keep that conviction and belief in yourself. And then when you are through it and you're in the place that you want to be, please remember to give back so that everybody can experience a better industry. So that's all for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.